I originally wasn't going to do this. I originally was not going to bother to add my voice to the growing chorus of folks on social media arguing against the so called All Lives Matter hashtag campaign on Twitter. I wasn't going to join in because I thought the folks who had already weighed in on it had already done a good enough job of debunking the All Lives Matter misconception. But it turns out that I might not have been right about that. More recently, former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley told a convention of left wing activists Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. As if to say, why can't we all just get along? So I felt, and ever since then, Twitter and social media at large have been a buzz again with comment and debate on this subject. So I figured, you know what? Let me see if I can lend a hand and maybe shed some light on this issue for a lot of the folks who are confused on it. Black Lives Matter never, ever, ever meant that only Black Lives Matter. I can't understand why so many people out there seem to think that this All Lives Matter clarification was even practically necessary as some sort of needed corrective to the Black Lives Matter message. Do you really seriously believe that the many people, thousands, perhaps even tens or even hundreds of thousands of people across America and indeed the world who joined in the Black Lives Matter campaign were trying to suggest that only Black Lives Matter, that only African American lives have value, that only African American issues need to be considered and given attention? If anyone thought that, I'm sorry. If anyone claims to have thought that, you're either being willfully ignorant or intellectually dishonest. Of course, another possibility that's a lot less palatable is that some of these people just were never that bright to begin with. I'm sorry, there was never any good reason to misunderstand the Black Lives Matter hashtag and interpret it as meaning that only Black Lives Matter. To my way of thinking, it's almost self-evident that what that campaign meant from the very beginning was that, yes, all lives matter, but all too often, in this world and particularly in America, Black lives in particular are treated as if they didn't matter, or at any rate, as if they mattered less than the lives of people of other racial backgrounds, particularly white lives. That's what Black Lives Matter meant all along. As one of my Facebook friends recently put it, actually, this was just a few minutes ago, he said, look, Black Lives Matter has always carried an implicit to, as in TOO, or also at the end of it. Black Lives Matter too. But the two is left out because that would risk weakening or watering down the essential message of the hashtag. The real message of Black Lives Matter is that yes, all lives matter equally, all lives have equal inherent worth and dignity and value, but all too often the system, and in this context particularly the criminal justice system in the United States, treats black lives as if they mattered less or as if they don't matter at all. Therefore, we need to pay particular attention to the ways that black lives are treated by the system and do something about it. Do something to correct this injustice. Of course, all lives matter equally. But guess what? The system doesn't always operate as if all lives matter. Now, some folks are saying, oh, well, maybe the problem is just that the hashtag was misworded, that wasn't the best choice of words, and all lives matter is useful for the purpose of getting that point across and hopefully leading to a clearer statement on the part of the Black Lives Matter movement. That's just garbage. Complete garbage. If there's so many folks out there who are so clueless that they can't see the true meaning and nature of a message like that, then, I think it might be reasonable simply to let those folks wallow in their delusions and not cater to them or pander to them to any degree. They're part of the problem, not part of the solution. I mean, if you're really going to misread a campaign like Black Lives Matter, as if it meant to say that only Black lives matter and that other lives don't matter at all, I'm sorry, you're dreaming in Technicolor, or maybe in some cinematography that's a lot less flattering and appealing than Technicolor. That's just ridiculous. And the problem with this all lives matter business is that it sends the message that we shouldn't be paying attention to racial issues, issues of racial injustice in particular. Now, here's one concession I'll make to some of the partisans or sympathizers of this All Lives Matter campaign. I think a lot of these folks have their hearts in the right place, even if their heads are in less flattering places, if you know what I mean. I think a lot of them mean well. They think that, look, we should be focusing on issues of class, socioeconomic inequality, income inequality, things of that nature, right? And so they think that issues of race and other identity issues, such as gender and sexual orientation and language and religion, simply serve to divide us when we should be uniting around broader issues of injustice and inequality. That's a legitimate viewpoint intellectually, but at the end of the day, it doesn't hold water because the reality is that there are certain very particular forms of injustice perpetrated against people of certain backgrounds, particularly African Americans within the United States. It's not enough to pay attention to social economic issues if you need to, bring about justice on racial issues as well. It makes sense to pay particular attention to those issues. And giving those issues the attention they deserve does not mean neglecting other issues that are equally important. Nothing in the Black Lives Matter campaign meant to send that message. Frankly, the problem, or one of the problems with the All Lives Matter campaign, is that it implicitly sends a message that, the rest of us in mainstream America, particularly white America, we don't want to hear about Black America's problems. We don't care. We're tired of hearing about it. We would rather, divert attention from these issues to, a more touchy-feely, lovey-dovey, warm and fuzzy message of, all lives matter. Let's look at this world in a colorblind manner and just not pay any attention to racial issues at all because those divide us, whereas focusing on all lives supposedly unites us. But what that does in practice is divert attention from issues that very urgently need to be dealt with. Now, there's plenty of room for reasonable disagreement about what the right solutions to these problems are, and even about the nature of the problem itself. But the All Lives Matter campaign sends the message that those problems don't matter, or worse yet, that they're not problems at all. And at the end of the day, that actually is the message that's really divisive. I've seen a lot of folks claim, oh, this emphasis on race divides us. No, denying the importance of racial issues in American society, that's what's divisive. Because every time you do that, whether you mean to or not, you spit in the face of African Americans and all of their allies in the struggle for complete racial justice in American society. It's similar to a lot of the messages you hear in the debate over whether American governments should display the Confederate battle flag in a celebratory manner on public property. A lot of folks who oppose taking the flag down claim, oh, you're just stirring things up and causing trouble and, trying to divide people and pit black against white, north against south, what have you. No, the Confederate battle flag is a divisive symbol by virtue of its history and its origins as a symbol of white supremacy, racism, slavery, segregation, and so on. Flying that flag is what's divisive. Taking it down is a blow struck in service of unifying society on an equal basis. Very similarly, it's the All Lives Matter hashtag campaign that divides people. Black Lives Matter. If people understand the message correctly and take it seriously, that is the truly unifying message. Take it to heart, folks. Recognize